What you getting at with the book script? Spit that shit out, man!
Do you want to form an alliance with me?
Absolutely, I do. Good.
Go outside, nerd. Get out. Go.
Oh my God, I did not think he was going to do that. That scared me. That actually scared me a little bit.
It's called Two Brothers. Two Brothers. It's just called Two Brothers.
Welcome to another episode of Two Brothers and Friends. I am Alberto. That is Edgar. This is Eric. That is... what's your name again?
Josh.
All right, that's right. Josh. Thank you guys for joining us.
Is it
for
like
tonight's
football?
episode. Yeah. Oh, I got it right here. Hold on.
Are you sure about that?
Oh, no, that's John Cena. Sorry. I sometimes switch it up, and it's different. I think it might be this one.
Is this like football?
There it is.
There we go. There we go.
There it is. Thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe. Share with your friends. This is going to be an episode that is going to deviate away from what we usually talk about, which is kind of video games, film, and TV. Well, we haven't talked about TV, actually, on this podcast. That's something we got to change. But this is going to be more of a personal episode. If you've listened to our mental health episode that came out last year around this time, I believe, you'll kind of get a sense of what we're going to talk about on this episode. I will say as a kind of an addendum, or I don't want to say like a trigger warning, but we're not experts. You know, you might want to consult an actual professional if you're going through any kind of mental health crisis or anything like that. So there might be some nuggets of wisdom here and there in this episode. This is just kind of four guys talking about, well, what we're going to be talking about, which is when do you know when you grow up? Which I think, and Josh agrees, is can be a bit of a sensitive topic, I think, for some people. Kind of a sobering conversation for some, right, Josh?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So this is going to be a sensitive one. I'll kind of just let people know that. Hopefully it's still going to be a little light, a little fun. I don't know, so we'll see how it goes. But anyways, Josh, I know you kind of brought up this idea for this podcast, this topic about when do you know when you grown up. So where do you want to start, kind of? Because this can go anywhere, dude.
Oh, man.
Let's dive in.
Absolutely. And first off, like, going back to what Alberto was saying, this is our opinion. Obviously, we're going to potentially have people question, maybe get frustrated, maybe agree. We'd love to hear your guys' insight.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your guys' feedback.
Definitely.
Give it to us, right? If you learn something from us, we appreciate that. If you want to coach us up, we're open to that as well. So
yeah, we would really like to engage with you guys, especially for an episode like this that's more kind of an intimate, personal episode. So definitely leave your guys' comments after you listen to this episode, and we'll take it from there. But sorry, go ahead, Josh.
No, you're good, man. You're good. I don't know where to start, but looking at my notes, let's talk about why this is such an interesting topic. Let's talk about why we want to talk about this. What intrigues us to want to actually sit down and talk about this.
Well, what do you think, Edgar? For the two of us, I think the reason why it connects with us is because we're kind of going through it right now. The whole growing up, adulting sort of thing. We're experiencing it. I think that's why it's such a interesting topic for us to kind of dive into. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Why do you want to do this?
Something. I think someone out there is probably like dealing with the same thing, right? And probably hearing us talk about it might feel like make them feel a little bit
validated, almost.
Yeah,
like they're not alone.
They're not alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
agree. Eric, why does this interest you? Why is this a topic that you wanted to kind of be a part of?
Well, I think
trying to absorb everyone's takes on this and maybe hear some stories. And I do like to hear how other people kind of perseveres through kind of the highs and the lows, you know, because I think there's, you know, your mind shifts through your late teens, and then your 20s are very different, and then you start to get to 30, and I think it changes again, and it could be for better or worse, but that can also be kind of objective as well. I mean, it's all kind of opinion, but I think you guys are kind of you're several years behind Josh and I, so you're definitely at a different stage of your life of where you might think it is or where it's going. And it's the same for me and Josh to be like, well, this is where it is, it's where we think it's going, and I'm willing to bet they're probably a little bit different. But I think hearing the evolution of how someone goes from point A to point B to point C, and kind of hearing everything that they've experienced, and like I said, the highs and the lows, and what did they do to kind of navigate that? Because I think we could all use perspective to help kind of move forward, you know?
Definitely, I agree.
And let's be honest, this is a conversation that's been in the making for a very long time. We've actually talked about this for quite some time.
It's been a minute.
It's been like 6 months, I think, we've been talking about this. Which shows that this is a very relatable topic, you know, for each and every one of us in this room. There's going to be a lot of people listening to this podcast who's going to know where we're coming from and agree with us, or disagree with us, which is okay. And what makes this so unique is it fair to say that we're going to have the answers?
No, man. I don't think you ever do.
Yeah.
I don't think you ever do. And this is coming from someone who's like, I'm 29 and like that, but that's just my feeling. I don't think you'll ever.
So 29.
Yeah.
Edgar, how old are you?
32.
Eric?
38.
You're 60, right? I think
am
the last
69,
time.
baby.
Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, Josh is the oldest of his own. He might actually be Nosferatu. I think you might
Cinema.
just be. I don't know what that one was, but all right, good.
Yeah. So we have 4 gentlemen in this room, different ages, right? Different times of their lives, and we've all been through it, some more than others, but you know, we don't really have the answer, and all we can really speak to is, you know, our experience. But this has been a question that I've been asking for a very long time, you know, based on feedback that I've heard from multiple people, feedback that I've given people. Probably wasn't the best feedback that I've probably given, but evolving and growing up and learning from my mistakes. But I don't know. I don't think we're going to have all the answers, but I think it'll be healthy for us to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Edgar said something that I also want to kind of emphasize is this is something that I hopefully will reassure people if they think that they're taking the wrong path, maybe they think they're messing up. Whatever you end up hearing tonight on this episode, maybe that'll give you some kind of reassurance, like, oh, I'm not fucking it up, you know. But we'll see. So, but go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I have some questions, and you know, we'll take this step by step. You know, I'd like to hear from each and every one of you gentlemen. But first question, what do you think are some examples that can hinder yourself or others from actually growing up?
Wow, man, that is a good question.
I think taking accountability for maybe certain moments or certain events that take place in your life. It could be a vast array of things. It depends on who you are and what's going on in your life. But I think it's hard for people to take accountability. I know I have that. I mean, I think it's something that you kind of have to go through, I think, frequently in your life, and depending on whatever is going on and how you approach that, it's going to impact you and maybe a certain path you take. I don't know. I think it really depends, but I think like a lot of self-reflection and accountability is certainly a challenge for I think a lot of people.
Is it fair to say that, you know, pride is an issue? Pride is a part of it.
I agree. No, I think so too. For me, because I'm not saying I'm guilty of it, but it is something that I do find myself kind of being guilty of, which is complacency. I think also can keep someone from growing up, kind of just being afraid to grow up.
Getting out of your comfort zone.
Getting out of your comfort zone, yeah. Which, I mean, you know me, Josh. Yeah, I've worked for you before, and it's hard for me to kind of get out of my comfort zone, and so kind of pulling the scope out and seeing kind of not just at work but outside of that, like it is kind of hard.
I think that's a perfect example, and I think that's one of the top things that hinder us from evolving, being better, growing up. You know, is being able to get out of our comfort zone, right? And we talked about earlier, there are some ways to better ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And there are certain things that can hinder us in some ways. But it was fun working with you too, because I can tell you the highlight, and this isn't, I know we joke about this and stuff, but I always challenge you to, you know, hey man, I need you to work in jewelry. And then you'd like, I see Alberto put his head down and slowly walk from the back department into the jewelry department, right?
It's like you're literally calling a kid from the back of the classroom to come up front, and it's like, oh no, I like it back here, dude. I don't want to move forward. I don't want to go up there. But I mean, what did you see as a kind of, what was the challenge that you wanted me to come out of my comfort zone yourself?
Absolutely. I think I knew that. I knew right off the bat you weren't very sociable. You were very conservative.
Yeah.
You were to yourself, right? And being a manager in sales, right? Your goal is you have to be a conversationalist.
Yeah.
Right? You have to go out of your way and engage with people. That is the foundation of sales, right? And in order for me to make you into a better salesperson, I knew I had to push you and not just ask you to do certain things. It was just more of like, hey man, you're going to do this.
Yeah, whether you like
it or not,
yeah,
this is what you're going to do for me.
Yeah.
Right? You know, and I hope it bettered you in some way.
No, I think it has. And I think that there's people who need those kinds of people in their life that will kind of push them, whether it's like a, I don't know, fitness coach or some sort of like, I don't know, just a person in your life that kind of tells you like, whether you like it or not, you're gonna do this thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I look at those people in my life and I'm grateful for them because I don't have too many of those people. And I agree. I think it does kind of help me to slowly come out of my comfort zone. And also, like, Edgar and I are aspiring filmmakers. And what's one of the things that you got to do as a filmmaker? You got to talk to, you got to lead, really, people. And you got to answer questions and get involved in things that you probably don't want to get involved in, but you have to. And so I agree. That's just, like, kind of part of the game.
Yeah.
You know? But you touched on something about like pride, about how that can also.
Well, before we talk about pride,
Okay.
we got to hear from this fine young man
Oh
right
my
here.
God.
Come on, bro. You think you can just sit in the corner and be quiet?
He's pulling you out of
I'm
your
pulling
comfort
you,
zone
man.
right
Come on.
now.
What was the question?
What are some examples?
Yeah, what
Do you think that can hinder us from actually growing up?
Fuck. I don't want to sound so fucking dumb with my questions. But from what I experience is like, how can I phrase this? Like, growing up in a Mexican household, basically.
Yeah.
You know, they expect you to do certain things in a certain way, and that kind of like fucks with your head, kind of.
Yeah.
Confuses you,
Yeah. And that's kind of like one of the things, I want to say maybe society too is another thing that kind of like you want to compare yourself to somewhere else.
Oh,
Oh,
shit.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a great example.
So it's little things like that, like what Eric talked about you. So it's a little bit of everything, you know?
Yeah.
That you kind of like think about, and it's like, am I doing the right thing? Am I growing up?
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, if I'm overstepping,
Mhm.
and I hope I'm like, your parents can hinder you from actually
Yeah.
growing up in a lot of ways.
Yeah, they
you
do,
know, and
yeah.
I can relate to
Yeah,
this
yeah.
too. Growing up with an Asian mother,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I know I have a great relationship with my mother.
Yeah.
I love her to death. But her way of raising us was like, you're never good enough.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, you don't dress good enough. You're too old to have a child.
Mhm.
You're not that smart.
Like, sorry. For example, like, they were going to offer me that job with you in appliances, and I told my parents, like, they're considering you to like move up, and they're going to pay me well and all that shit. And like you said, it's like, okay, do more. It's like, what the fuck? I thought.
what does that mean?
Yeah, like I'm getting a good position at my job and all that. And you still like,
it's like wanting to see the results right then and there.
yeah, like,
you know.
yeah. But once you show it to them, it's like, okay, well, do more.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, okay, fine. You know,
Mhm.
I thought you were gonna be
it's
like,
relying on our parents to kind of like tell us that like we're doing a good job,
Mhm.
and when that kind of component isn't there,
Mhm.
you don't have the motivation to push yourself. 'Cause sometimes you do want your parents to be like, "Oh, I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job." And you're like, "Fuck yeah!" You know?
Yeah.
I think when you grow older, you learn to kind of have to pull that from yourself.
Yep. Mhm.
And not have to worry about your parents' like validation.
Mhm.
You know, you kind of just have to find it from other people, from, you know,
Mhm.
friends or whatever like that, or from yourself. But that can be difficult too, is when you don't have the right support system.
Mhm.
I would say like the right balance.
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
of conversations, right? I think there is a time where you have to, like, there should be that time, like that conversation that like, oh, you're not doing it good enough,
Mhm.
right? And that motivation to want to be better. We talk
Yeah.
about, you know, how do we get to the next level? How do we be better? Sometimes we need that push, right? And sometimes that's that push that we need.
Mhm.
But then sometimes you need that balance of like, good job. Let's
Yeah.
celebrate this
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
win.
The little
right?
victories, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and
Mhm.
and I'll use another example. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
It's okay.
But like, when they released you at J.C. Penney's, and they didn't give you a valid
Mhm.
reason, right? That in a lot of ways gives you doubt and hinders you
Yeah.
in a lot of way from growing up.
Shit, I was gonna say something, I forgot. Well, so yeah, when they were considering me, it was like the same time they wanted to let me go, right? So I was kind of confused. Like, I thought you guys wanted to consider me to like move on to appliances and all that. And yeah, when they let me go, then they gave me a right explanation. And to be honest, I think that's what really gave me a little bit of depression after that, because I was like, oh shit, they really consider me like I'm getting better and da-da-da-da, right? Getting
Yeah.
good at the job. And at the same time, it's like a week later, it's like, okay, we're going to let you go. It's like, what
Yeah,
the
they
fuck?
pulled the rug out.
Yeah, they
from
told me,
under
like,
you, yeah.
okay. And I was kind of lost in the moment. Albert knows he was there. I was like, fuck, man. I was kind of like, I was enjoying it, you know, while I was working, right?
Mhm.
I was going to like see how this goes, you know? I never had a promotion like that, or whatever you want to call it. You know, so it was kind of like, yeah, they took it away from me. It's like, fuck, okay, now I got to square one again, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So definitely, like, again, like a well balanced, certain things that need to be over communicated.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, to be let go with no to tell you that they're going to take you from this position to a step up position, and then say, hey, in the next week we're going to let you go. You're playing with somebody's emotions, right? It creates doubts. You start questioning yourself.
I was, yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
yeah, playing with somebody's emotions is not.
It's never fun, man.
It's
That's
never
not
fun.
cool.
Was that the first time you'd been in a situation or a position working where you felt like you were finally being recognized.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That can be. I can definitely see how that would be a very like demoralizing feeling to kind of finally get to a point where you're like, wow, I'm finally at this point where someone's taken an interest in me, and like, you know, they just like, it just gets, you know, and then it gets taken from you for whatever reason, right? Whether it's justified or not, that can certainly be a very challenging thing to deal with, especially since it's like the first time you've been in that position or had that opportunity, and then it kind of gives you that doubt will creep in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Let's talk about that pride.
Yeah, I feel like you could probably elaborate.
Yeah.
on that, right? Or-
I think pride is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I think you should be proud of yourself and what you are doing. My philosophy and my thought process is too much of something can also be a hindrance.
Yeah.
You know? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Like being too proud?
Too proud. Too prideful. Eric, what are your thoughts, man? You're the one that brought it up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I brought it up. No, I know. I think what ends up happening is, and this is going to be different for everybody, but I've certainly been in positions in my life where you are attaining a certain level of success for so long, you forget that you're not invincible, and that it can get taken from you at any point in time for whatever reason, whatever the reason is. And it really, again, depending on how you take this. So it's happened to me, I would say twice, at least one time for sure. Like when I was younger, I worked for this company for a long time, and it was the first company I ever worked for. And I would say that I was moving up fairly quick. It was a big corporate company. And I was there for so long, I just didn't think it would ever end. I was naive. I thought to myself, like, this is it. Like, I'm secure. It's nothing could ever happen. And then something definitely did happen, and it was to my own fault, which I couldn't admit for years. Like, I was devastated when I lost this job. I took no accountability for years. All I ever did was point the finger at all these other reasons, and I never once stopped to think like. In this moment, I never stopped to think like, well, what got me to this point? And then I think now, because it's been so long, I can reflect, and it's easy for me to be like, well, that's how I got there. I was completely unprofessional. I was my pride, my ego had gotten so high that I thought I basically was in like that I'm invincible, and my undoing was 100% my fault. It had nothing to do with my superiors telling me like, hey, we're letting you go. It had nothing to do with them. It was not their, you know what I mean? They weren't out to get me. I realize now, like, they have a company to run. They have a standard. I was not living up to the standard in many of the policies that they had, and I should have known this. But, you know, it took years for me to kind of settle that down in my mind and then meet new people, and like Josh, for example, who provide guidance and perspective. And then you look back and you're like, man, yeah, that was all on me. So I definitely think pride, ego will definitely put the blinders on for some, maybe not everybody, but it did for me for certain. Because I was very competitive. You know, I was a very like driven person, very competitive. I wanted to prove that I was the best at what I was doing, and I was going to give the best results. So once that wasn't enough, it was a very hard thing for me to deal with at first. But guess what? That experience led me down, which it's funny, it took years of time and not even realizing it. Unrealized years went by to where I reached a different point where it was kind of the opposite. My pride switched more to, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. Like I'm worth more. My self-worth is worth more than what I'm going through right now. And everything I've ever done doesn't matter. Like, no one's going to remember it. It doesn't, who cares what I did 2 years ago at this location versus now? It's all going to be forgotten in time. I'm just wasting my, my mental health and stress dealing with this. So anyway, that's just based on strictly my experience.
No, I think that's a great example too, because I think it's fair to say that you were in that position and you were put in that high position because of your level of maturity at the time, right? And then, of course, that pride that was on top of that got you to that level. But then the pride just got so big that it ended up being your downfall.
Oh, it wasn't just a downfall. It was like the reality of the situation. I couldn't even comprehend the reality of it when it happened. You know, and I was in my 20s. I'd been working there in my teens. I was in my mid to late 20s. So it was a massive life shock.
Yeah.
And but I think looking back, it was probably one of the best things that could have happened to me.
Yeah.
The path I was on with pride and ego was not a good one.
Yeah.
It was dangerous.
Right.
You know, it was one of these like, all right, someone's got to rattle this dude's cage over here.
Like humble
yeah.
there. Yeah.
I didn't know anything about humble pie. Like I grew up in a very fortunate, I would say privileged household, where I had very loving parents, but they were, you know, very successful in their careers, very successful. But I don't recall having conversations about, you know, what it's like to not be successful, because that was not a thing. That never happened to them. They went to the top, finished it out, retired, and that was it. So it was almost like foreign to me to like be told like, we're letting you go.
Oh yeah, that's a good
You know what I mean? And
that's
when you grow up like that, it's a woof. You want to talk about humble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about questionable examples, right? Some things I've heard in the past. I think we can all relate to this as well, right? And pride, I think it can be a questionable example as well. And why I use pride as an example is because when we think of pride is healthy. It's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
We should all be proud, and we should be all prideful in what we do and how we do things, because it can be a good thing. It ultimately can be a good thing, but it can be a downfall as well. But I think there's a lot of examples that are out there as well that sound like it may put you in a position to grow up, but it may not.
Okay.
And this may be a controversial topic, but I want us to elaborate. I know a lot of us, we may not be able to understand or experience it, but I think it'll be healthy to kind of talk about it. But like one of the biggest things I've heard growing up, right, and I heard this when I was young, when I was in my teens, was I used to get ridiculed by this one girl I used to work with, and she would always tell me, like, I'm younger than you, but I'm much more mature than you. I'm more grown up than you, because I had a child at a young age.
Oh no, yeah, that doesn't
What are
really,
you guys'
that doesn't
thoughts on
really
that?
sit right. I don't think.
No, well, think about it. You're put in a position where you have to be an adult.
Yeah.
You're taking care of your own child, right? So there has to be that level of maturity. So I get where the person was coming from.
well, there was a level of immaturity that got them there, I would say.
That's what I was thinking.
But again, that's an opinion,
Sure.
because people, that's one of those things when if you decide to have a child, I mean, you could be 17, 16 or whatever age and just decide like that's what you want to do. But I wouldn't necessarily say that that's a wise decision at that point in time, because stepping into the universe of, all right, it's time to be an adult as a teenager, I think it's society, it takes time to build like great maturity or wisdom or however you want to go about it. It takes decades to understand. Just like I was talking about in the last part about the ego, it took me like 10 years to realize this.
Yeah.
And this was not having a kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This was a job.
Yeah, and I think it's like society kind of puts those milestones, like you think you should be having a kid at this certain age, or you should be married at this point in your life, and it's like it's different for everybody. And I think that can also be discouraging for people like myself. I always feel like, should I be at this point where I have a kid, should I be like married? Does that mean that I'm growing up? Should I chase after those things? And I do want those things, but it's like, am I ready for it? And I think that's something that you have to kind of just.
What do you mean? Like, are you ready for it? Just
like,
out of curiosity. Elaborate.
I don't know. I guess like prepared to now be able to take care of someone else other than myself. Do I feel like I'm ready for that? I think there's a lot still that I gotta contend with first before I decide that I want to have a child or want to. It's just like a big commitment too,
right.
But I don't know. What do you
Edgar,
think?
thoughts, man?
Shit.
What was the question?
Let me ask another question.
Finish what you were saying. Let me real quick. I don't necessarily think that makes her more mature. That in that moment, that makes her more mature than you. Is she being forced, kind of by baptism by life, right? Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. You better start like stepping up and doing things that your mom was doing for you when you were young. Think back to that. Like, certainly, but I don't know if I don't think it's like her rite of passage now to tell you that. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Let me put it in another perspective, and maybe this will be more relatable for a lot of us, and an easier question for you to answer, Edgar, and all of us as well, is in order for me to grow up, I need a house and a successful career.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm dealing with now. I've been thinking about that a lot. Albert knows. I told him like,
no, because I've been kind of thinking the same thing too.
It's like there's friends and other people that I see that got their shit straight, right? Like they got their own house or getting their own house. They got their own cars. Which I got my own car, but like stuff like that. Like you feel like you're left behind somehow.
Yeah,
you're trying to
catch up
to them. You take one step forward, and at the same time, you're taking 2 steps back.
Do those things like really define you as an adult?
That's what I'm starting to realize as I'm going through my own journeys. Like those things don't define you, but also because like the road that I want to take is way different from a traditional path to success. Like, I want to be a fucking writer. How many people do you know of that choose that as a like career goal to be a writer? Like, that's really not impossible, but definitely really difficult. And like, I don't want to settle for a job that like would get me closer to that goal of getting a house, but maybe. And I think that's where like the whole parent component comes in. It's like they start to tell you like, well, you gotta do something.
Yeah.
You can't just keep waiting for the moment or keep wasting your time, as my parents like to sometimes say, is that we're wasting our time with the writing thing or the filmmaking thing, whatever. And that can be discouraging too, because now you're just kind of like, do I give up on the dream?
Yeah.
Being, chasing after being a writer and all this stuff, and just kind of settle for kind of I don't know what you would call like a comfy job or something, but like, yeah, but I don't look at that as like things that define me. I mean, what do you think, Judge? Do you also agree, or what is your perspective?
Man, that's a hard topic, right? So it's a hard question. Let me put it in this perspective. We were all 16 once. We all got our driver's license at one point. The second you're able to drive, what's the first thing that you want besides to drive? You want your own vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Like I want to get my own car. I want to show it off. I want to like have that easy access from getting from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Right? But what are some things that we're forgetting about? And it doesn't hit us until we actually buy a car.
We gotta get a job. You're gonna have car insurance, a car loan.
Yeah.
you know, you're gonna have
Maintenance too, maintaining that car too.
oh yeah, maintenance. You're gonna have friends that want to leech on you to get rides. Like, are they? You know,
Yeah,
there's more driving.
So we forget, or we don't quite understand all the baggage that comes with it, right?
Yeah.
I think this is a perfect example for anything and everything. Like when you're getting a house, when you have a child, you know, you forget about all the baggage that it comes with, and you need to ask yourself, are you really ready for all that baggage on top of it, right? You know, can you afford the car payment? Right? Nowadays, like a car payment on average is like $450, $500.
Yeah.
You got to pay insurance. You know, you're going to get a loan. You got to make car payments, so you have to get full coverage. That's going to cost you like $100 minimum, right? You got to pay for gas, right? You know, like, do you have a decent enough job to pay for that? And even if you have a decent job, most of your money is going to go to that vehicle anyways, right? You know, is it worth having that? And that's what a lot of people don't understand. It's like the pressures of wanting your own house, right? Shit, interest rates are at an all-time high. Mortgages are all at an all-time high, right? Do you want to pay that? House insurance is fucking expensive. You know, having a child, right? You know, is that child going to be breastfed? Shit, mine wasn't. I had to pay formula. You know, are you mature enough and are you ready enough? You know, I think that's a part of being mature, being grown up, right? Is you're prepared for all of the baggage that comes with it.
Do you think you can ever really be prepared?
I think that's a good question. Yes and no, right?
Yeah.
I think hypothetically speaking, no, right? But going back to like what Eric said earlier, like accountability.
Yeah.
Are you coachable to feedback?
Right.
Right? Are you looking into this before you jump the gun, or are you just pointing and you're shooting before you aim?
And then it's going back to the pride thing too. I think someone who is kind of all about the ego and the pride and stuff, they will look at that and be like, hear the word coachable and think like, you think you can coach me? I don't want to be coached. I don't want to be told what to do. Like they hear that and they're like, they think it's like a
I'm already good
negative,
at what I do. Yeah, it's a negative. Yeah, it's a scolding,
like,
right?
Yeah, it's like you talked about that a lot with at your job and how you kind of have to do that sometimes, and it's like for a lot of people they resist that idea of being open to like, hey man, you suck at this thing, you're not really good at it. I know you want to get good at it. Like you have to kind of be not your handheld, but kind of have to learn, and sometimes that means having someone that's more experienced than you to kind of teach you and show you the ropes, even if you feel you know it.
Being vulnerable, being open to feedback and life lessons, and you know that's definitely a big part of it. But you know, like anytime I do feel if you do jump the gun prematurely, it is a sign of not growing up, right? You know, and you know, for those of you that are still at home, right? I think of myself, right? I didn't leave my mother's house until I was like in my mid-20s, until I was in my early 20s. You know, and my mother was single. She could barely pay her mortgage. I was making buku bucks commission sales at Sears. Sears paid pretty well. You know, Eric can understand that. So I felt like, you know, I had to hang around to support my mom in that aspect. You know, but some people can also argue and say that he's not ready to grow up. Right? My wife wanted me to move in with her 4 years into our relationship. And I was like, nope. Wasn't ready to, right? Because I was also thinking about all the things that can possibly happen. I'm like, shit, what if we break up? Where am I gonna go?
Did like when that happened and you were like, was there any fear of like, I'll fail if or something, like it will change the dynamic? Did you ever think that too?
Yeah, you know, there was a part where there was the fear of changing, right? getting out of my comfort zone and things like that. And absolutely, I think there was a part of it I wasn't ready to grow up.
Oh, okay.
I think part of it was also that I was aware of some of the things that can potentially happen, which was maybe some type of maturity, which was good, right, to have. Because I remember talking to her, I was like, "Are we ready to get married?" And she was like, "No, I don't want to get married yet." And I'm like, "What's the point?" And I'm not saying that's the right answer. Obviously, I'm still with my wife, but I want to say it did prepare me for what was to come.
Right.
Going back to the career aspect of things, like how many people actually do 100% enjoy their jobs out there?
Oh man,
when it pays well, decent,
I would have to assume still not very pleasant.
Yeah,
right.
Nobody likes working for the man, Eric.
No. I honestly, going to Alberto, I know, like, some people that I've met in my life in the more recent years, I think a lot of them would love to be where you're at right now. Like chasing, or I guess, you know what I'm saying? Like chasing like what you want to do versus just settling. Now, maybe down the road that you'll pivot, but I think if you just let that happen like organically, it won't be hard for you to do. But I think this whole idea of like, oh, I see my friends are getting places. Okay. Are they? I mean, is it a competition? Ask yourself.
It seems that way, but yeah.
But it's not.
It's not, yeah.
It really isn't. Like, and I love what Josh said. It's funny because he's like, I wasn't ready to grow up. Well, but on the other side of that, you had a level of maturity that was like, I'm not ready for that. And there's so many people that don't even stop to think about that kind of thing. Like, I would say it was probably ballsy for you to be like, I'm not ready to get married. Like, I think there are a lot of young people out there, or people, maybe not even young, but I think a lot of the younger people in their 20s, like, just want to dive into it. Got to get in there. Yep, got to get married. It's like you at least were kind of like going through some scenarios like, well, what if we split up? Where am I going to live? Where am I going to stay? Like, you were navigating through a lot of like all these possibilities that I think a lot of people today cannot do. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think you could say, well, I wasn't grown up, but like there was like a level of taking a step towards the right direction.
To be aware of that.
Yeah, it's a process, you know.
Absolutely.
And Edgar bringing that up about how like it's a competition too. It's like that's something that me and my girlfriend also is guilty of doing, is like looking at social media and seeing how other people are living, and it's like comparison. Comparison. It's like you're seeing what they're doing. It's like, fuck, like they're 23. I'm 20. I'm not saying I'm 23, but it's like they're the same age as me, and they have these things, and I don't. And it's like you immediately sort of just get discouraged because you don't have those things, you know.
So life is a competition, and it's so easy to compare ourselves to like social media and to our friends and things like that. But can we ultimately say that our friends are happy? Like, we know our friends, but do we know them?
Yeah, that's
are they really happy?
Because you only really see a fraction. Of
like
that. Yeah.
There was this, like, I was like reading an article about this, like this couple that was like on social media, and they and pretty much like the topic was like how social media ruined their lives. And it was like this guy, and they were like, they own their own businesses, and they were always like bragging about their money, right? Like, look at my cars, look at my house, and all this stuff. And then what people ended up finding out was he was cheating on his wife often. Their house, they didn't own it. They actually were bankrupt, and they were renting it. They just lived there so that they looked like they were rich, right? Yeah. And everything was like falling apart. And behind the scenes, and people were like so indulged in this lifestyle, and these people, and their businesses weren't successful, and they were going bankrupt. And she ended up like killing her husband because he was cheating on her.
Jesus.
And then she ended up killing herself. So social media is a fucking lie. to an extent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it puts us in a pressure where it's like, God, I need to grow up. I need to grow up. I need to be a better person, right?
Yeah. Well, it's also like being in the age of social media and technology. Like you're not. There's a song that I like where the lyric is that like we're never alone, but we're always depressed, right? And when it's like we aren't alone, we can see other people and how they're living, and somehow we still find a way to kind of bring it back to our situation and kind of just be like, fuck, like Jesus, like those guys are living the dream. They're doing what they want to do. It's like, but you only see the highlight reel of it.
Yeah.
And that highlight reel is like, that's been handpicked by them. They chose what they want to put out there. You don't see what happened after they took the picture.
Right.
After the video, what happened after they have an argument? Were they sad? Did they really, it's like you don't know. And sometimes that's kind of comforting to be like,
our friends are like that too. Our friends do a really good job. Myself, I'm guilty of this at times too, is we're so good at putting on a show for the people around us, right? Because we're prideful.
Yeah.
And I remember having a get together with my buddies, and one of my buddies was dating this girl for a really long time, and they both showed up to this dinner party, right? And they were like holding hands and stuff like that. And it turned out they actually broke up that day, like right before the party. And they were just putting on this show because they were embarrassed or whatever, right? But they were like, hey, remember that guy, blah, 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 and this lady, they were together for so many years. I was like, they broke up before the party. I'm like, why the fuck did they show up to this party? They were just embarrassed and they wanted to put on a show for whatever reason, right? We don't even know people, man.
Yeah.
Right? So why do we pressure ourselves into making it a competition, right? This is, this person is where they're at, right? I need to be there or at the next level. Why do we do that? And to me, that's stumping your maturity and your growth, in my opinion. Yeah. You're just causing harm to yourself mentally, physically, emotionally. You're not allowing yourself to grow up, in my opinion, because of that pressure.
And you're also just not allowing yourself to just live, dude.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to just take it day by day. Just kind of just... and like... it's... No, yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just, you just kind of... I heard somewhere before that, like, your 20s, you kind of just waste them. You're just kind of figuring shit out. Do you agree with something like that, Josh? Do you think that you... I'm not saying you wasted your 20s.
So that's actually a great question, because I was going to bring that up too, because the world puts pressure that once you turn 18, you're considered what now?
An adult.
Right? And then when you hit 21...
You can drink beer.
You can drink beer, right? Like you've made it. You're an adult, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, are you really an adult at that time? But to your point, yeah, I think you are actually figuring shit out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the 20s are definitely a very experimental time, and I also think your 30s are too. However, I guess in my experience, when you get to when you get into your 30s, it slows down. Feels like life kind of slows down, and you're able to kind of compartmentalize things a little bit differently and maybe more efficiently or effectively. I think I'm speaking from somebody that's, let's say, progressing in the right direction. Now, I'm not talking about a fucking off the rail, because there's people that are just fucking off the rails for the entirety of their lives. But I'm speaking more to like someone that has gone through probably your typical 20s, partied a lot. I know I did that. You had a job, thought you were invincible, didn't ever think it was going to end, and then it ends. And then, so I don't think your 20s are, I think your 20s are maybe extraordinarily valuable, because I remember my 20s being a time where I felt like I never had the weight of like fear, like for the consequences of my actions. Like they would happen, you'd be like, oh shit. It's kind of like touching the stove and it burns you. You're like, oh, I better not do that again. Or in your 30s, you're like, yeah, Like, I know if I do this, I'm going to burn the shit out of my hand.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? Right? I'm speaking a little metaphorically. Does that kind of make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
And so you could say it's like wasted, but I don't think it's wasted. I think it's a great time to experience a lot of different things and not have like that weight. Like, I think nowadays, look, in my early days, I know Josh can relate. We didn't have cell phones running around worrying about what other people were doing with houses and jobs. That kind of shit never even crossed my mind in my 20s. I could see now, the generation now having a hard time with that, where people are just blasting out clips of their life, and it might seem like you're falling behind, but the reality is you don't know if you are or aren't. And I think the 20s are a great time to not have worry. Just, you're going to burn your hand on the stove, and then later in life you're going to remember that, and you're going to approach things a lot differently. It's really what it comes down to.
I agree.
You want want to talk about like career wise, right? That you guys were talking about that, and hopefully I'm phrasing it right, and I'm not discouraging anyone who's listening and whatever. This is my point of view. Like for me now, we're on the same fucking page, right? Yeah, he's the one who introduced me into like screenwriting and all that. I loved writing in high school and all that, but I didn't think it would be a career. But when he started doing it, it's like, that shit looks fun. That's something achievable. But that's not the point. I was talking about like when I would work in retail, finding myself in my 20s, 18, and all that shit. I would work with people like were a little bit older than me. Like let's say I was 21, they were 25 or something, right? And they would tell me, what do you want to do for a living? And I was, I'm still looking for, still thinking. And I'll tell them, it's like, well, what about you? Or, So, well, yeah, I went to school for this and like accounting or whatever the case is. I don't want to like fucking shit on. I was like, so what the fuck are you doing here?
It didn't pan out.
It didn't pan out. Like, so when I kept running into those type of people in my jobs, like, oh, I went to school but it didn't work out, or I couldn't find a job, or whatever the case was. And I was like, so what's the point of going to like school and get a decent job if it doesn't
get you where you...
Yeah. So that's why I'm kind of like, if we're what's the word I'm looking for? I'm still going to I don't want to say I want to end up like they do, but like if I do, I might as well just do what I want to do for a living, like screenwriting.
Yeah.
If I'm going to end up not like, what's the word? Like them and working at retail or like a corporate job, might as well take that chance,
To try.
Try, yeah. So that's at the same time for me that was kind of discouraging for the longest time I wanted to be a pharmacist, right? And I also ran into people that were like, oh, I went to pharmacy school, or I went to whatever, right? Medical school. And I'm working here in Jesse Penny. It's like, so why the fuck, like...
Yeah, like, oh, so
it's
then
kind of like this.
Why should I try?
Yeah, why should I try if
Yeah.
It's kind of discouraging at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not telling people like if you want to be that, that's fine, go ahead, right?
Yeah.
But that's from my point of view. It's like, that was just a waste of time for me then.
Like it was a cautionary tale.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, like not to try that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's like, again, it's not bad if you want to go to school and shit. But seeing that over and over, like they kept ending
The same way.
in the regular jobs.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
might as well just take that fucking chance of learning how to write, or just following your dreams, or whatever you want to do, and fucking take that chance, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge aspect, I think, of growing up is don't settle, right? Don't do things that you're going to regret or not enjoy. But do what you enjoy and or whatever you're doing, make the most of it and turn something good into it, right? I know I shit on my job a lot. I'm always venting to you guys.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I continue to work and do what I do, right? Because I do enjoy it, right? And I work. Retail is the shittiest type of job, I think. It's not the prettiest, right?
Yeah.
But I enjoy it for whatever reason,
I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
and but I have learned so much from it, and I've gotten to from where I was to where I am now, and it's been a roller coaster ride because I've had to take several steps back, because I wanted to better myself as an individual so that I can grow up and be better down the road, right? So I think I've told you guys this. I think Eric knows too. When I first started at Sears, I was like young. I was in my early 20s, and I was making good money. I think at my high point, I was making almost like 6 figures. And then I was very interested in going into management. And there's that rule of thumb: in order to move forward, you have to take a few steps back, right? So I took half of a pay cut, right, to go into management because I knew that I had to start somewhere to get to where I'm at now.
Right.
You know, but I was able to take and learn, critique myself, make adjustments. You know, I've been told I've been hard to work with.
Right.
You know, I've adapted because of that. You know, I've probably held on to more people than I should have, employee-wise, and they were more projects than they were like business, you know, and things like that. So now I'm like able to balance it, you know. But because I was able to take a step back and say, hey, I'm making almost 6 figures. Now I'm going to take a 50% pay cut to a decrease, right?
Yeah.
You know, because I want to better myself. Am I able to do it financially? You know, which I was, right? Wasn't able to enjoy a lot of what I was doing, you know, but it got me where I was at, and it helped me mature, you know.
Yeah.
And now I'm making ridiculous money, and I don't have any.
Josh, all right, you're showing off, right?
Sorry, you know, but I got where I was at, and I'm financially doing well because you know I was able to adjust, change, take feedback, you know, and I'm still not perfect. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, you know, like, but I was proud of what I was doing. You know, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I ran with it. So if that's your guys' goal, then run with it.
Like for example, I was gonna be happy if I was gonna get that job at JCPenney. I was gonna like, I can see myself work here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Fuck it, yeah. Right, just like Josh took that opportunity and then JCPenney, Sears and all that, right? But you know, shit happened. But doesn't that make sense what I said earlier?
No, yeah, that makes sense with me. Yeah.
And at the same time, like when people want you to follow that same road of like, once you turn 18, go to college and be a doctor and those secure jobs. And it's kind of discouraging when you like, you know, I'm going to school for accounting or, you know, whatever. And you tell them, I want to be a writer.
Yeah, and they
right?
look at you like...
They give you that look like
they almost look at you like, this guy is, maybe he's not growing up. He's chasing the pipe dream. Kind of,
so they they give you that look like it's not a career. It's not a thing to...
Oh, I get that a lot.
Right?
Yeah.
So... sorry.
But also probably this is probably coming from the perspective of someone that's also very young, and they are following exactly what they've been told.
Yeah.
Go to school, do X, Y, and Z. And so when they hear somebody else, it's like, I don't want to go to school. I want to be a writer. Like, it sounds foreign. And I think some of them, whether they want to admit it or not, probably feel like deep inside, like, yeah, I'm just doing this because of the pressure.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
You know, they're not going to tell you that.
Yeah, they're not.
But there's just a lot more examples of people who failed at writing. It's a lot easier to look at that and be like, there's no way you can make it. Like there's outliers like Stephen King. He made it, but because he's a fucking genius. Or Quentin Tarantino did it and so it's like, why would you try? You're not one of those people. Like they look at it like that, and they don't even bother thinking that there is such a thing as success. And I think you also have to look at it like, what does success look like for you? You know, in that field, in filmmaking and in writing. You know, like a lot of people think they want to be directing the next fucking MCU film. I want to make the next fucking Batman movie. It's like, but what if I just want to make a fucking indie movie that's about fucking my life, and that's not the ceiling, but that's the fucking goal.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is my MCU film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think you have to define what success is
Yeah.
for you, and I think for writing, you really have to think about it in that way too. You know, so I don't know.
So we've used some examples, you know, from feedback from other people. Let's use ourselves as some examples.
Mm-hmm.
I want to actually talk about childish behaviors that some of us have in this room. Do you think having childish behaviors stunt you from maturing and growing up? And some examples, right, is collecting toys, comic books, playing video games, right? Do you think that stumps you from growing up? Watching
Eric, what do you think?
cartoons, gentlemen.
Watching.
I guess it depends on how you utilize that time or that money, or, you know, if it's done responsibly, I suppose it's kind of like you become 21 and you can drink alcohol, but that doesn't necessarily mean you should.
Right.
I think when it comes, for me, I like to collect action figures. And I probably would, if I didn't have any guardrails about finances, I'd probably go crazy and just go nuts with it and blow all my money and just buy as many as I could. But I think at that point, yeah, you're kind of, because that's more of a childish mentality. Like when you take your kids to the store, they don't realize like, hey, there's a limit here. We're going to stick to $20 or something, right?
Right.
I think everything comes in moderation, and I think there's nothing wrong with having. You need to have that sense of youth in you a little bit, because if you just take it too seriously all of the time and worry about your 1 minute clip of your life that Edgar looks at and is like, oh, I'm falling behind, and really it's like Alberto said, like, well, they chose those clips, like, like that's not real, you know. Like I think having like that inner youth inside of you, it brings you back to earth a little bit, and it helps balance kind of your life with feeling good about like, no, you know what, I really do love like reading these, you know, comic books about Deadpool and these, you know, whatever it is, and as long as you're doing it in like a healthy way, like, and it's not consuming your life, unless it's something you do to make money. If you're doing like YouTube reviews on it, fine. Yeah. But everything in moderation.
Agree.
God, yeah, I think that kind of summed it up.
Right.
So that's kind of the point that I wanted to make, was that, you know, I feel like to a degree it's fine to still have those, those little whimsies, you know, those little things that you like, comic books and video games and all that kind of shit. Like, you have to have something that kind of balance out the fucking crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like, everything, the world's fucking just constantly on fire. Like, what's the matter if you go to the comic book store and buy a comic book every now and again?
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. You know?
Just jumping off what Eric said too, just be cautious, you know, but at the same time enjoy your hobbies, have time, and don't let that inner kid fucking die, right? You know, it's it brings joy, right? When you get those things, if you go to get a new comic book, a new video game, you know, it's it's like a little bit of enjoyment for yourself.
Also, I feel like this is going back to the whole video games thing, and it's like, you know, obviously we don't have as much time now as we grow older to play games, but goddamn, if I'm still not excited for the next fucking like Metal Gear game or something that, like, man, I'm gonna go try to buy it, and if I don't have the time to play it, at least I have it, and it will be there whenever I get the chance to. I'll fucking play it. Like, that's still good. You know, it's still fun to have that. Like, all of us here in this room, as much as we critique film and all that, we're all excited to see the next Superman movie.
Like, for example,
fucking Batman 2 and shit. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, well,
maybe
you will go see that movie.
I probably will.
Yeah, you will.
I probably will. You know what's crazy is like, I always think about like my office. You know, that's the most immature room ever. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. No, but how that room was created, I remember that I had just taken over this position. I was so fucking stressed out, and my wife was just like, "You're making good money. Take what money you can and turn that room into your
like man cave,
your man
yeah.
cave, your sanctuary." You know. You know, and I turned it into what it is. And it's like my little, like, it's my inner childhood.
It's your sanctuary, dude.
Yeah, it's my sanctuary,
Yeah.
you know, and I appreciate that. And do I think that it hinders me from growing up? Absolutely not.
Also, like you've said, I know you mentioned this before, like you get to share it with your son too.
Yeah.
If you didn't have those things that you enjoyed, you can pass it on.
That
to, you know?
and the best thing about that, my man cave,
Yeah.
no girls allowed. My son and I will hang out in that room.
Yeah.
We'll play. I'll play with his toys, you know, to because that's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
I'll be on my computer. I'll be playing PlayStation, the Switch. He'll do his own thing. My wife comes in. He looks at his mom and he's like, "No girls allowed. Get out."
Right.
You know. So it's great. But also like in moderation, you know, having a child does change your life, and I always catch myself with that little stump of refusing to grow up, right? And I'll be so indulged in a video game,
Yeah.
and then my son needs that attention, and I don't want to give it to him, right? Because I'm so selfish in my own little world of not growing up and being a father, you know, and then it hits me like 5 minutes later, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta stop what I'm doing.
Take the time to be with
I gotta take my time to be with my son,
Yeah.
because that stuff can be a crutch too. So Eric said it perfectly. You have to do it in moderations. You have to do it at the right time, you know. But hold on to your inner childhood.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree. I agree. I think
And-
that's important.
Also, you've noticed Josh has mentioned money several times. What do you think about that, Edgar?
I want to kick him in the nuts. Not just.
No.
No,
Do you need to make good money?
Yeah.
I think that's good. Yeah.
I'm kind of giving you a hard time.
No, it's okay. I don't know. It's weird coming from him. It doesn't discourage
Like
me.
yeah.
You know, because I know him. But if it's a fucking stranger, it's like, man, fuck you,
Yeah,
type of way, right? No, it's just like for him, right? I know him. He's my friend. I kind of like tell myself like I want that too, you know, not in a bad way. It's like, yeah, I want that too, you
To
know,
be able to
to
have
achieve
that
it,
money,
yeah,
yeah.
to have it, yeah.
I think I really like how you use the word achievable. Like, I feel like your mind is already where it needs to be in a lot of ways. Like, talking about screenwriting, you're like, I think it's an achievable thing. Like, I don't see any reason for you to stop pursuing that. Like, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you. I mean, I think
Yeah.
there's moments in my life where I reflect where I feel like, man, if I just would have maybe thought a little bit more clearly about. Sorry, I'm kind of like
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Thought a little bit more clearly about like the path or the next step. Like it's easy for any of us to say, hey, well, if I could go back then, but I think you're in a perfect spot where, and same with you, like you're not there yet. And you don't need to be, and it's not a rush. Like,
Right.
I think you're gonna find your guys like as you advance into your 30s, you're gonna feel so much better.
Right? Yeah.
That's it. That's
yeah.
all.
Oh, thanks.
Anyway, about that, I kind of got a little
agree,
off
man.
track from the thing
No,
about
no,
being
no.
youthful, but I was more like kind of trying to get to the whole like.
Yeah.
Yes, you do want to set yourself up for success to maintain a healthy youth lifestyle because it has to take the back seat if you're not in that place.
Yeah.
And I certainly have gone through phases where I'm not buying action figures. Certainly. I've
Right.
gone through parts where I'm like, it's got to take a back seat for now. And then when it comes, it comes. It is what it is. It's not, I had to kind of tell myself, like, it's not the end of the world. Like, I used to get real worried about, like, if I don't get to Target and get that 4-pack of the Punk Rock Turtles, I know it's going to turn around on eBay the next week and it'll be twice the cost. Like, that kind of shit used to sink my brain. And then I started to realize, like, dude,
That doesn't really matter.
it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It's more of like a luxury. Like, yes, I want to have it. I want to show Josh. I want to show whoever it is. Like, I always show Josh. But
She sends me like all these text videos of, like bragging about his NECAs. But go ahead.
Yeah, no,
Sorry,
no,
man.
it's true. I like it, but I feel like I also can, like, you know, it's like I can share it with Josh. It's more of like a sharing thing, like to speak similarly to you and how, you know, I was just taking a shot at Josh a little bit, but anyway.
You just kicked me in the balls.
Yeah,
but,
for more different
no.
reasons, but yeah.
I'm glad that you talked about money too, because money, you and I have talked about golden handcuffs. You and I have talked about money as well. You know, like, what is the root cause of money? What can it do to you? Do you think?
Yeah, I don't know, dude. But, I mean,
Is that a part of growing up? Make more money. Like
more
being
money, more
financially
problems,
stable?
man.
More
Like-
money, more problems.
I mean,
Instead of
come on,
best,
dude.
best, no doubt about that. No, think about that too. Is like at my job. I've told my boss in the past. I'm like, you know, if I walk away from this job and I make this much money in my next job, that's a lot less. I'll be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
But you've accepted that.
Yeah.
Right, but I think you've come a long way to get to that. Because I think money is it's very important for many different reasons,
Yes.
though. Like, absolutely, the more money you have, the more you can essentially do. But at what point do you start to kind of drown out your life with kind of like, I've read some books and gone down some rabbit holes. Like, there's people that talk about, like, well, the society has kind of turned into this, like, we're defining ourselves by what we own versus who we really are. And that's why I really like you guys talking about the writing and the script, because that's kind of who you want to be. It's, yeah, you could go get a job and climb a corporate ladder and make a lot more money, and but you could easily morph into like that everyday, you know, societal zombie that's, you know, hey, I got this new car, let's go for a ride, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Money is it's very important, but I think we also have to know our boundaries there too. Like, what is too much? Because I think some people, they end up making more and they just spend more. So they're not really making more because they're spending more.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just because they're worried about how does it look versus like, are you happy? Right?
And I appreciate these guys talking about what they want to do because they enjoy it. And never once have you guys talked about like the reward that can come with it.
I mean, look, I'll tell you right now. There was a point when I was doing the whole filmmaking thing where I was like, I want to make fucking $100,000 and I want to be doing this and that. And watching videos of the directors that I look up to, they immediately say, like, if you're in it for the money, don't do this job.
Yeah.
Like, don't do it. Like, you want to do it because you enjoy it, because you're going to be able to give people a story that that can affect them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the currency is the fact that you were able to affect someone with a story. And if you're going in it for the money, then you're going to fail.
But I also don't think being financially stable, because it depends on everybody's circumstance, right? Identifies you as like growing up and being successful and stuff like that. Do you remember that fitness manager that worked at Sears, the big guy?
Yeah, I do.
He gave me.
I say that, you know.
Yeah. He gave me actually a really good advice because I remember talking to him and my wife. I had just married my wife, and one of my wife's biggest rule is like I don't ever want to live paycheck to paycheck, right? And I remember talking to him about that, and he told me, he was like, there was a point where my wife and I were living paycheck to paycheck. And the reason why is because we wanted to overpay and take care of our kids so that they can enjoy certain things in their lives. And that was a sacrifice that we needed to make was, hey, I don't think I can pay this bill or that bill because I wanted my kids to go to these events, these sports things and blah, 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 right? And it just changed my perspective that like, man, that's just a sign of sacrifice and maturity of an adult to better somebody else, and especially their children, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I love and respect that. And I've thought about that, you know, like, hey, you can live paycheck to paycheck, right? And enjoy what you're doing and still be grown up at the same time, right? And successful, because you're the joy and the experience that you're going through, you know, that's the win that you get at the end of the day. That's the feeling, that good feeling that you get at the end of the day. That's rewarding, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think if there was any semblance of an answer to this question about how do you know when you're grown up, is when none of that other shit matters, man. When you're just doing what you enjoy to do, and you're not shackled by societal pressure or, you know, familial pressure, where you can still, in spite of that, kind of go forward and just enjoy your life. I think that's kind of when you know when you're grown up, and you strip yourself of the ego as well. It's like the movie Jacob's Ladder, right? There's that moment when they're saying that, like, if you resist, you'll see demons tearing at your flesh, but if you accept it, they're really angels trying to set you free. You know, and if you resist so much and you're trying to be something that you're not, of course it's going to be, your existence is going to be just endless suffering. But if you just kind of accept, like, I'm here now, this is where I'm supposed to be, and that's okay, you're going to eventually get where you're going to be, you know? So,
Absolutely.
I kind of felt like I shat on people in the last one, but I want to jump off, like for example, right? I see a lot of people, like, let's say, again, they're a lawyer, and at the same time, they felt like they spent those years wasted because they didn't enjoy it, right? And because, like, for example, like, I see people post things on, like, on their profiles, like, oh, I'm a lawyer, but it's kind of like they say, like, I don't like it though, ha ha ha, LOL at the end. So it's kind of like, so you don't like it, so you're right. So I'm trying to say is, like, if you want to, if your main goal is to be a doctor, then fucking go for it. Don't go another like road where people like, well, a doctor's 10 years, be a nurse, you know, then okay, then it's like they kind of push you the other way, type of thing. But then again, if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, then go for it, fully go for it. Don't fucking
don't half-ass it.
And that, and once you're done with that, like, that career, then you end up, like, not liking it. It's like, right? You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. I agree.
You know, just go for what you really want to go for, right? Don't, if you want to be go for it, fully go for it. Don't let anyone fucking stop you.
I agree.
Yeah, but if they put that shit in your head, like, well, it's kind of like 10 years and you're going to be in debt, and just go for this type of thing.
I don't want to make it sound like I'm bringing video games too much into the conversation, but I want to put this analogy out there, and this is why I love the Dark Souls games too, is that, like, when you start the game up, there's no tutorial. They don't tell you how to, like, do anything. So you kind of have to learn trial by like error, you know? But if you look up the internet, you'll see guides on, like, oh, this is how you get the best weapon, this is the best build, and blah blah blah, to optimize your. But it's like, but I kind of want to be a fucking sorcerer, dude. Like, that's what I want to do. And it's like, go for it then. That there's still an answer to the boss. If you're a fucking mage or a sorcerer, it's just that it's going to be a lot more difficult. But you'll still get the end result. You'll still win.
Good example, yeah.
You know, some people get afraid of, like, trying new things, or they're like, I just want to stick to this build and I'm good and it's fine. It's like, yeah, sure, it's optimized. You win a lot. All the bosses are easy and whatever. But maybe try something different. Pivot. It'll make the game more fun.
Or life, basically. Yeah,
life is more fun, yeah. And it's like, I look at it like someone said before too, it's like there's, like, bosses that really challenge you in those games. And you'll get really, like, frustrated, and you keep getting your ass kicked by it. But then someone said, like, you only need to beat them once. And that's it. And then it's gone forever. And you win. You know, like, they can keep beating you and all that, whatever, but it just takes one. That's it. And I think the same thing with life too.
Yeah.
It just takes that one fucking thing. that will propel you to where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So
And you said it perfect earlier. There's no tutorial to life.
there isn't. Yeah, no, there's not.
You know, you got to just
Yeah.
go through it. You got to learn as you go. You got to
Well,
adjust.
That
as well.
kind of is, right? Like, society already has that, like I said, once you turn 18, you gotta go to college. You gotta get
Yeah,
that
it's
good
a
career.
terrible fucking tutorial though. It's
Right,
an
that's
outdated
what I'm saying,
tutorial.
yeah.
You know, like Josh, you played Breath of the Wild. There's no fucking.
No.
Hey, you want to go over
Here
there?
it is.
Go.
Have at it.
Yeah. You want to fight Ganon first? I mean, that's brave, but go for it. Like,
Yep.
you can do
That's
that with
college,
life
man.
too.
That's
Yeah,
college.
yeah.
That's fucking college, right?
It's like, I'm just gonna keep climbing trees over here. If you don't mind, I just want to.
I'm gonna make like
Yeah.
endless meals.
Yeah, it's like that's fine too.
Yeah.
But at some point, you gotta get to
You gotta
fucking
get, yeah.
Ganon.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like that's kind of how I look at life too.
So we emphasized a lot, and you kind of touched up on some key points on what does it mean to grow up. So we kind of talked about like some examples that kind of may hinder you.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were good examples. But what are some recommendations, some examples for somebody who is struggling to grow up, to mature, right?
Yeah.
What are some good examples or recommendations that you guys have?
This is coming from someone who is struggling still to kind of accept change, but I think just kind of recognizing that change is a good thing. It's not necessarily just a bad thing. I
Yeah.
think can be helpful to learn to know. Now, whether that information is retained by the person, that's a whole different story. But I think knowing that, and I think you two can speak on it, because I'm sure you've gone through moments in your life where you've gone through big changes. It's like, it's scary for sure, but you know, there's joy on the other side of that. You know, I think that'd be one thing that I would say. But what about you, Eric?
Well, if you don't mind me asking, what is, to kind of kick it back to you, and you feel free, you don't have to dive into it, but what are some of the changes that you feel like you're facing that are making you feel like you are not at that level of growth that you want to be at right now?
I think it comes down to like self-criticism, where I get in my own way. I think where I feel like if I write this thing, X, Y, and Z will happen, so I might as well not try. Or if it's something personal, like with my partner, if I move, I lose the comfort of my own home. I lose the routine. I don't want to lose my routine. I'm afraid of it, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, I was telling Edgar, this sounds silly, but I got a PlayStation in my room, finally. So that means I don't have to be in your room playing the PlayStation 5. But in some weird way, I'm like, this is weird that I'm not hanging out with Edgar at this time anymore. My whole routine is all fucked up. And his little things like that kind of like affect me. And I think like, damn it, if this little thing affects me and affects my routine, what's moving out gonna do for me? Like, I'm afraid of moving out. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I
does that make
understand
sense?
You're kind of like interrupting your ecosystem.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
change in any scenario can be very scary, very hard. I do think, though, I think you were talking about complacency earlier,
yeah.
and I think what you'll find is if you kind of venture out further into the deep end of the pool, it's not going to feel so deep if you just take it on and accept it for what it is, and you might be surprised of the result of it. You don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what it's going to be for you. I don't even know what it's going to be for myself as I embark on a new chapter, in my life right now.
Yeah.
So, but I think what I've learned is typically when something is uncomfortable, I don't always necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think you can look at it that way. I think you certainly can. And depending on where you're at mentally, like your mental strength and how you process things, I think you should embrace like little changes, because you'll get past it. Like in a week, you'll just be in your room playing PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's all
yeah.
it's gonna. That's all. That's kind of maybe for me. That's like the most simple answer I can give you on one thing you just said.
Yeah.
But I think you'll find that you're just playing PlayStation, and Edgar's across the hall.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And so is it? There's nothing there. You've just that's one little thing. I think you can conquer that one. Then it's the next, and then it's the next. Now I don't know if it's necessarily, and I don't know your situation, so I don't want to pretend like I do. But obviously, if you're really wanting to leave your current ecosystem, move out, that's a big change. It's a big shift. There's going to be a lot of different things that are going to need to start happening. It's kind of like going back to Josh and the car thing. Like there's a lot of things that change with like, well, there's insurance, there's car payment, there's gas, there's maintenance, whatever, right? So you face a lot of those uncertainties and how you're going to navigate that if you've not had a lot of experience with that. So I would say take it, dude, don't worry about moving the PlayStation into your room because in a week it ain't going to matter. Or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so what? You write something and it doesn't work? Well, I guess you can always write something else. And then you move on to that.
Also,
then you move on to that, you know?
Also, like, who's telling you, going back to, like, writing, right? Like, being in your own way.
Yeah.
You know yourself more than anybody, right? And if you don't hear feedback, because feedback for yourself is valid, it's needed, but other people's feedback is also necessary too.
Yeah.
And if somebody else doesn't tell you that it sucks, then is it valid?
I don't think so.
Right? Like, so we really need feedback from other people.
Yeah.
Right? So, because we don't really know it sucks until it sucks. Because there's a lot of movies that we've watched out there. We'll use movies as an example that just are garbage and it's trash, right? Like we watch this and we're like, oh man, I'm never going to get an hour and a half, 2 hours of my life back, right? But I'm pretty sure that director or whoever wrote that movie, when they wrote it, they were like,
This is the greatest thing.
Thing in the world.
Yeah.
You know? And it's trash, but that person's still making money off of it.
Mm-hmm. So you read that Batman v Superman is trash. All right, let's go ahead and just move on from that conversation.
Had to throw that one in.
Oh, still good movie. Yeah, no, that's just my thought too. And yeah.
Well, it's like the feedback that Josh was talking about at the beginning, like where he hopes that someone gets on and has something to say about it, because it's true. Look, there's going to be people out there that just generally put a petty comment, no, whatever. But then if you get someone that's a little bit more detailed, like there's more thought put into, hey, if you guys maybe did X, Y, and Z, like I think that's what's needed. Like to Josh's point, like we have to know. Like
for this podcast?
Yeah, let's just say for this podcast, for
Yeah.
example, because you talked about it at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think knowing what can be better, or maybe what works, what's
what
not,
isn't
whatever,
working,
I
yeah.
think that's almost more important than just somebody being like, great job, guys. Okay. But we all feel a little unsettled, maybe, right? But like that to me is, yeah, you do want the hey, great job, like the pat on the back here and there. But I do think at the stages now, the screenwriting, the writing, doing the podcast, it's probably, my guess is it would be much more beneficial to get more of the constructive, even if it kind of hurts to read a little bit, like because it's actually somebody trying to share a perspective if they come across a certain way about it. And I think that's how you inevitably build and grow and keep going. And you know, well, like I said, there's always gonna be somebody that's like,
Are you talking about
piece of shit?
That's how this podcast is going to grow up. With the feedback
Well, I
from
think
the people that are listening.
look,
I love
people.
that.
I
That's
think
the
people
overall,
people assume that. Let's take, pardon my take, for example, that Big Cat and PFT were just born doing this shit. You know what I mean? Like, no, they started somewhere at some point in their life. Probably had somebody tell them, yeah, you're kind of crazy for thinking you're going to go and do whatever it is you're going to do.
Yeah.
Right? Sports blogs, whatever. Right? Somebody said the same thing to them that you're thinking about now in fear.
Yeah, right.
And you could go to any successful business podcast. It started somewhere as nothing, and I'm sure there was plenty of people that are like, you can't do it. It can't be done. You don't have what it takes. And usually those are people that are probably regretting not chasing after their dream. Instead, they did decide to take like the route that society kind of has built. Like, well, you turn 18 and then you're 21 then you go to you go to school, then you go right out into the workforce, and then you know what I mean. Like it's kind of like it is kind of like an unrealized written tutorial. Mm-hmm. It's not official, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Damn.
All right.
Anyway, this is all good. Yeah.
Edgar.
What?
What's your piece of advice? Or did you already kind of hit on it a little bit?
Well, you guys kind of talked about it, but I'm at that stage and I'm still stuck. Even though I feel like I know what I'm doing at the same time. You know, I still think about those things. You know, like the getting a house, moving out, and all of that shit.
Yeah.
So I'm 32 and I still don't have my shit together in some ways.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And just telling the people who are listening, like, it's okay to feel that way. Yeah, if you got nothing, got everything right, if that makes sense in life, it's all good. You don't have to follow anyone's path. Don't look at that shit, like you said, social media.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know?
It's like Shannon Sharp also said this too. He's like, there's no failures, only delayed successes. And I agree. There's no such thing as it's just little building blocks, like little steps that get you to where you're gonna want to be. You know, there's no success without failure, man.
Yeah.
You gotta fail. You gotta fucking fail.
Can I ask, if you don't mind, kind of similar to Alberto, where do you think you don't have your shit together? What makes you feel that way right now? Aside from thinking about like a house and a car, you're forget that. What is holding you? I guess what's holding you back from that thought?
Shit, there's a lot.
If you're comfortable sharing, you don't have to.
Fuck.
Is it because you think you're not good enough at like whatever it is you're trying to do, or what do you think?
Just a little bit of things like that. What's one of them? Like again, we're living with our parents at the moment, and they're kind of like fucking constantly telling you like you gotta get.
They're pushing you and pulling you in a different direction. Yeah, I get that.
You know, and it's kind of it's like fuck. Do I have to really like really get these things, even though it's kind of like hard at the moment to get those type of things, I guess.
Yeah.
I would imagine, and I don't know your parents. My guess is though that they probably came from a completely different generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and you have to take that into consideration. Today's society is a lot different. And what their perception is of you being successful, that should not define you, though. I don't think it should define you at all. Like, I think it's okay to, like, aspire to be more.
Yeah, right,
or,
yeah.
You know, to feel like you want to be more successful. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a quality you should have because it suggests that you're driven and that you have, like, motivation to do things. But I think you... This is just a personal opinion. I think if you wash your hands of worrying about a house, a car, other Josh, little Josh, and his getting married, house, whatever.
Right.
Like, gotta have that because that's what it is. I think you're not gonna find happiness there.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Now, you might come to a like I said, you might pivot naturally. That's a little different. At some point and do something completely different, but I wouldn't let that define you.
I would also say use it for motivation in what you want to do as well, right? Both of you guys. I don't think parents... What is the definition of a good parent? It's a very hard question to answer, right? Because let's just be honest, there's crackheads that are out there that think that they're great parents, right? let's be honest, right? I came from a household where I was never good enough, right? And I was talking to my sister the other day. I was like, man, some of the things that mom told us, like, it was like verbal abuse, like, right? But I think I used it as motivation, as okay, whatever I'm going to do tomorrow or in the next year, I'm going to take pride in it, and I'm going to be successful in it, right? And I'm going to learn from it to get to the next step. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So it might come off as discouraging, but I always think too, like, yeah, maybe my mother like said certain things that weren't right, but I knew it came from a place that was like caring, right? Because they wanted what was best for me. She wanted what was best for me, and they want what's best for you guys, right? But we gotta flip our brains, right? And then that's part of mental health too, is flip your brain and saying, okay, I'm gonna use that as motivation. So you're telling me that I need to get my shit together, right? Then I'm going to use it to be a screenwriter and not care about what everybody says, right? Or I'm not going to care how I feel in this moment, right? Until I get constructive feedback.
Yeah.
To better myself, right? And I think that's a part of also growing up, is that you got to take all the negative and put a positive spin into it to self-motivate yourself to be a better individual.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because know that, like, especially if it comes from like family, right? Or somebody that like maybe I come off the wrong way as well, but know that it comes from a good place, right? And use that as your motivation, So
Yeah, Josh is right. This is all coming from what your parents perceive as like a positive place, is my guess. Remember, they're looking at it through their own lens. That's all it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And yeah, I can understand why it's bearing down.
Right,
like, I'm not saying your feelings aren't valid, but I think it's like doing little things like Josh said, like find something small. You might learn something from it, whether it's positive. I think it's always going to be positive, even if it feels negative. I think there's always going to be like a positive end to it. As long as you have that mentality, but it's like just something small, like he said, like kind of like I was telling him, like, okay, dude, you're gonna play PlayStation in your room for a week, and then you're gonna adjust to that ecosystem.
Yeah,
That's it. That's all. That's really what it's.
No, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Damn.
I hope I touched you. I hope Eric touched you a little bit.
You guys touched me, yes.
In the wrong way. Anyway.
Whoa.
No,
was
just like football. You know what's funny is I had an interesting conversation with one of my managers today, and I just promoted one of my managers into one of my busiest stores in the company, and he was like, "Josh, I need to have a sit-down conversation with you, right?"
And then you said,
"Is this like football?"
You asked him,
"This is like football." And he was like pretty stressed out. He was pretty broken, and pretty much he was just giving me feedback about how intense I am, how overwhelming I am. His feedback was that I come in and I already have a solution. I'm too quick to having a solution, and a lot of the times those solutions are unrealistic because I'm not sensitive to what is actually going on. Right?
ah, okay.
And because I'm managing through a telescope. I got 8 stores. I'm managing through a telescope. I'm looking at numbers, and then I make a quick judgment when I go into these stores, right? Which isn't fair, And after hearing him speak and say all these things to me for a good 15 minutes or so, I apologized, right? And I was like, that's not my intention. I wanted to let him know that I'm coming from a good spot. But I was like, let me ask you a question. Do you feel like, since you've taken over this store, that you've accomplished and made things this much better, which isn't that much, right? I don't know if those of you that are listening, I'm putting my fingers together,
Yeah.
making I don't know, what do I call this?
He's pinching like tweezers in
Yeah,
his
it's very
fingers.
small,
Yeah.
right? I'm like, are you this much better? And he was like, yeah, I am making things this much better.
Yeah.
And I was like, then that's a win in my book, and that's all I'm asking, for you to be this much better as of right now, because then you're going to be another this much better.
Yeah, incrementally just.
Getting better, right? And that's how we have to look at life, right? Is yeah, your parents are managing you through a telescope, right?
Yeah.
But they're motivating you to be this much better,
Yeah, man.
which is a win.
That's a good point. I kind of like that. Really good.
Yeah. You guys got me thinking now.
Yeah, I don't think we have all the answers.
No.
I think this was a great topic. A lot of self-reflecting, right? A lot of be vulnerable, I think, is a part of growing up. Be acceptable to feedback, right? It's a part of growing up. Don't ever rush.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever put yourself in a position where you're rushing to grow up, because you're going to set yourself up for failure, and you're going to set other people up for failure as well. And one thing that I will add, obviously, take care of yourself first, right? And I think one of the reasons why you also want to take care of yourself is, I think a part of growing up is being able to take care of the people around you.
Yeah.
I think that's a part of growing up, and Alberto, I'll use you as an example, right? The sacrifice of moving in with your partner, right, is you're going to sacrifice some of yourself, right? Because now you're going to give all of yourself to this person.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And that's okay. That's a part of growing up. That's a part of being in love, to get to the next step, right? Marriage, having kids, and so forth. But I told my wife this many years ago. You knew what you were getting yourself into when you married me, right? So for you to get frustrated with me playing video games or reading comic books or buying these things, right? You're already aware of it, and you knew what you got yourself into,
Right.
And that means I'm never, that's who you are, right? I knew what I was getting myself into when I married you. You knew what you were getting yourself into when you married me,
Right.
But, you're obviously going to give a lot of yourself to this person, but you're also going to still enjoy the things that you are doing, and that's okay, right?
I think that's reassuring to hear from someone like yourself, just like knowing that the good things that you enjoyed before, after you've kind of made the change, is still there.
Yeah.
It's just, maybe it's not going to be as frequent or as a, daily thing. But knowing that, hearing that from you guys, just like that made me feel a lot more reassured.
Yeah, that's the word. Yes.
Yeah. And I hope that does that for people who listen to this episode. Is that don't feel like you gotta grow up too fast. Take your time. Life doesn't come with the fucking tutorial, so just do what you want, man. Just take
be that mage that you're talking about.
Yeah, be the sorcerer, dude. Yeah. Be that mage is what.
Yeah.
And seriously, just if you're playing a video game and you're fucking rushing through it, you're not really enjoying it, man. Just take your time.
Yeah.
Take in the scenery, Yeah, you may have a whole fucking quest log of things to do, but just take it one thing at a time. And you will eventually get there. And yeah, I think this is a good topic. It definitely made me feel a lot more, like I said, just more calmer about life and navigating through it. And I hope it does that for people too. So again, not experts, but hopefully our experiences kind of moved some people. But go ahead, Josh.
I'm going to put this out for the people that are listening. Okay.
You like football?
Do you like football? You're okay with Coke. No. If you are listening and if you have any feedback, if there's anything that you want to talk about, put it in the comments.
Good point. Good point.
I guarantee that, whoever puts anything in the comments, the four of us, we're gonna get together and we're gonna make that a topic. Whether it's this topic that we're talking about today, anything that you want us to elaborate about, we'll do another podcast just for you guys. If there's several, right, we're going to take the time and we're going to do all of those
Dude.
suggestions.
We'll read every fucking comment, okay? So, I second Josh right here. Dude, please drop a comment down. Tell us what you'd want us to talk about. I agree. That's a good. Hopefully, people will do so. Cause,
Please subscribe.
Please subscribe. Honestly, like for real though, we've been doing this for almost 4 years now. Oh my god! Please subscribe. And please,
we got a point where we had like 400 plus hits of views.
Can we get those, please?
Subscribe, please.
That'd be really great. That would make me feel like I'm growing up, I think. No, but for real, thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate the support. We'll continue doing this. Like Josh said, please comment down below. Tell us what you would want us to talk about, and we'll do it. Because why the fuck not? This has been Two Brothers and Friends. I'm Alberto. That's Edgar. Eric. Josh was... I think you said you're 75 years old?
69.
Okay, that's good. All right. So thank you guys for listening. It's been Two Brothers.